This is It's Gonna Be Okay with Dr. Roseann, and we're talking about natural anxiety relief. Anxiety is on the rise. It is the number one clinical condition amongst adults in the United States. It has surpassed mood disorders, and it's something that seems like is every day now. Like it's almost like when somebody doesn't have an anxiety disorder, it seems like a rarity. And for kids, the average age of onset is age 6, which I know is surprising for people, but we live in a very anxious world and our kids are, easily imprinted and absorb. And there are many reasons why people have anxiety, right? So we always think of just genetics and we think of neurotransmitters because that's what pharma wants us to think about. But there are many reasons why people have anxiety. And if you're looking to better understand anxiety and exactly what to do about it, I've created the best resource for you. It's the Natural Anxiety Relief Kit. You can go to drroseanne.com/anxiety kit. This is just an unbelievable jam packed resource. It has easy to watch short videos, downloads, and really, what do? Map out anxiety, help you to better understand it, but more importantly, it's a roadmap to natural solutions for anxiety because this is what you asked for. So I created it just for you. So hopefully you grab it. So let's talk about anxiety. So, a part of anxiety that we don't talk about is anxious avoidance. And when anxiety shows up, most of the time it doesn't just jump in our face. It's little behaviors here and there, whether it's an adult or a child. And anxious avoidance is easy to sort of hide. It can be in plain sight, and those behaviors kind of creep up there. And, what does it look like? So all of a sudden, your kid is a little more avoidant and resistant, or maybe they've always been a little resistant. Maybe it's to new things. Maybe it's to comfortable things. Anxious avoidance shows up in different ways, but it's a sign that some level of distress is happening in the inside, right? And, when we talk about anxiety, we can have internalizers, we can have externalizers, and internalizers are what we classically think about anxiety, like those anxious avoiders, like the kids that shut down. But then there are the angry, anxious people, right? And we see this a lot in males where, we misdiagnose them with ODD and, mood disorder and ADD because they're just so reactive. But I always like to make a special point to talk about my, externalizers because they get missed as being anxious. And anxiety can show up in both ways. It can show up in a mix where sometimes it's a little of both, or mostly one way and a little bit of another way. And, what's super, super important about anxiety in order to combat it, you've got to calm the reactive brain. It's all about self regulation. And when we have dysregulation, a person can't think, they can't pay attention, they can't learn. And a regulated brain is the foundation of all learning. It's the foundation of executive functioning. It's the foundation of absorbing new information. If we are too dysregulated, how can we learn? We can't. And when it's internal, like anxiety, we don't always see it, right? Sometimes we don't see it until we actually do some treatments. I know that when sometimes, I've had kids who are really high level performers and they struggle with gastrointestinal issues. And a long time ago, I had a young man who would vomit Sunday to Thursday. And his mother went to every gastrointestinal person. They checked him out. And the doctor finally said, like after like a year, was like, maybe it's anxiety. So she came to me and she's like, let's try some neurofeedback. So he did like one session and he continued, but she said he stopped throwing up. And then after time, she was like, he's actually hugging me. And he was a lovely kid. He's going to go down as one of the most lovely kids I've ever worked with in my life. So wonderful human being. And she was like, I had no idea how anxious he was because he was doing well in school. He was a pleasant kid. The only clue I knew is that he was throwing up. He didn't have the words to say it. We're talking a super, super bright kid. He's like an amazing adult, by the way. So it can hide, and we don't know until we do brain commerce. We've got to calm down. I want to talk about SSRIs and anxiety treatment. So, because we only think that anxiety, right, we've been taught, we've been led to believe that it's always a brain dysfunction that's neurotransmitter related, right? Not that our nervous system is stress activated. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about inflammation, nor do we talk about inherited anxious behaviors. We only talk about inherited genetics. But anxiety runs in families because we all act a certain way when we're around anxious people, right? So we have to break that cycle, and it can absolutely start with you. And that's important. And SSRIs are dangerous, there's incredible side effects, and there is not a lot of research to support their efficacy in many clinical issues related to children. They're used off label all the time, they're given to autistics. There is no medical drug for autism, right? And in fact, we know that from postmortem studies that 76% of the brains have a neuroinflammation. So why aren't we doing neuroinflammatory drugs, right? You don't even need to do drugs. You could do things like curcumin, lots of detoxing components. There's so many other ways to get there. And that's what this conversation is about. That's what this natural anxiety relief kit is about. You can go to drroseann.com, anxiety kit. So let's talk about natural solutions for anxiety. So there are many natural solutions for anxiety, and some of my favorite, of course, is magnesium, which is why I made multi-mag brain formula. But I love different supplements that calm the excitatory neurotransmitters, because neurotransmitters can become excitatory not just because of genetics, can be because of genetics, but because the nervous system gets stress activated, right? So we've got to regulate that nervous system. Magnesium can be part of that, anti-inflammatory part, diet can be part of that, somatic techniques, EFT tapping, neurofeedback, PEMF. These are two things that I use constantly. There are a lot of things we can do to regulate the nervous system. I dive into them in my natural anxiety relief kit in depth, lots of videos and downloads that are digestible. I mean, I'm a busy mom. I made this for busy parents. So that's important to get really good information. And then you want to make sure you're using these strategies consistently, at least 30 days. But one of the most important things that we need for anxious individuals is not to allow for anxious avoidance. It happens way too much with parents. And just so you know, those anxious behaviors are very sneaky. What we want to teach is coping skills for anxiety, right? So it's a missing ingredient, right? So we've got to calm that nervous system, teach coping skills. If our kids are not stress slayers, they're going to struggle, right? And we need to empower them with problem solving skills and stress tolerance. We can't avoid things. We've become a culture where we try to bubble wrap our kids, and that's not a solution. What is the solution is coping skills. But yes, we want to calm the nervous system. Yes, we need natural solutions, and there's no quick fix. So focus on natural solutions. Grab my natural anxiety relief kit. It's got evidence based approaches to anxiety. Go to drroseann.com/anxiety kit.